I will welcome people to the Richmond Parking Advisory Committee meeting on Monday, February 13th. And the first item on the agenda is for public comment that is not related to items on the agenda. Does anyone have any comments not related to items on the agenda?
All good.
All right, and here is Mr. Lowe. Welcome.
Come on up, sir.
Join the
Am I in your,
Cloud.
am I in your seat, Bob?
wherever you feel comfortable.
And so, since Chief Herrick is working and has other duties, I thought we would start by working with him and if that's all right. So before, we would have some questions, but is there anything you wanted to share about the parking on West White Hill near Gillett Pond before we?
No, we just people questions.
Okay, and
I don't know what it is that.
so I think it's along the lines of the things that were discussed a week ago at the select board meeting. And as I ask questions, my sense is it's not for us to tell you how to do your job, but at least to learn how you're doing your job and how things have changed over time. And so can you share any information on the ticketing that's happening? This would be near the dam on West White Hill.
Yeah.
Were you asked by neighbors to ticket, or you were just enforcing this state law as you saw it? Were they in the middle of the road? Were they usually on the side of the road? What?
So I have not written any tickets up there. By process of elimination, that means it was Officer Dengler.
Okay.
Because it's either her or me.
Yeah.
Right now. And my understanding is that she was just enforcing the town ordinance that cars are not supposed to be parked in the roadway. And I agree with that. We being the town has taken such a hard strict stance on other roads that I don't think it's right to ignore that one. The Cochrane Road and Dugway Road parking issues. We have been asked by the people who live in those areas and by people who use those areas to tow cars and write as many parking tickets as possible for cars that are even questionably parked. I don't see that it's fair to look at another road and go, well, we're gonna let that one go. The West White Hill area where the cars are parked there, those cars are parked there during a time of year where the roads are even more hazardous than the middle of August when the roads are dry and whatever. There's snow, there's ice, so on and so forth, that can cause more of an issue, not less. So I'm not entirely sure what is being asked of the police department at this point.
Well, from what Bob Lowe has shared, for 50 years, people have been parking there, and for 50 years, the police has not been enforcing it. And I thought I understood from last week's select board meeting that the law that was being enforced was the state statute and not the town ordinance. You know which is there a difference? Does the ticket say which one it is?
There's a large difference between the two.
Do you know which one was being enforced?
The town ordinance.
The town ordinance. So the town could change the ordinance if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
just from my knowledge, I'm sure with having the snowbanks up there makes the travel portion of the road even smaller than
Right.
summertime parking. What is the ordinance?
You cannot park in the travel portion of the
Okay.
road.
So the same as a state ordinance, just we do it as a state.
Yeah, the difference is if it's a town ordinance, it's a $25 ticket.
Right.
That is left on the windshield for whoever may be using the car that day.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of it. If it is the state statute, then the ticket is written to the operator of the vehicle, goes on their motor vehicle record. I don't believe there are any points associated with the ticket, but the fine is substantially higher.
So just as I understand what options are available to the Richmond PD staff, could a warning be issued if it was the choice of the officer?
Officers always have the option of giving a warning.
Okay, and just as far as discretion, because this came up in the meeting, the select board meeting last week. I'm just thinking if you're looking for speeders on Cochrane Road and there's one going 5 miles over the limit and one going 20 miles over the limit, might you sometimes focus on the one that's going 20 miles over the limit?
Yes.
So the question is there if the residents of Dugway are very insistent that there's a problem here and no one at near Gillett Pond is saying there's a problem, and the road is wider and we don't have any record of traffic accidents, perhaps there's a higher priority for
There are
other
a
roads.
substantial number of traffic accidents on West White Hill that are related to road conditions.
I think my 2 cents, the analogy doesn't hold. You're not saying ticket the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit guy. You're saying, let's not give out tickets on Cochrane Road.
Well, I'm saying that there are other priorities for the Richmond PD, and maybe you would say this isn't a big issue. There's something else I have to deal with.
That argument could be made for absolutely every action we take while we are on duty. What is the most serious crime committed in the state of Vermont, in your opinion?
I'll guess it's murder. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, then we'll go with murder. So anything that we're dealing with, it's not murder, there could be something better for us to do with our time.
Oh, okay, so then just trying to see where this is gonna go, and I don't need to hog the floor here. Officer Dangler, who's very good at her job. When I've talked to her, she might decide to move on to a bigger police force at some point in time. Then it could be next year she's not here. There might not be any ticketing on West White Hill Road. If there hadn't been for 50 years, that it might go away.
Yes, it might go away,
Yes.
yes. However, the past 50 years have not been the same on Dugway Road either. It's been a growing problem that got exponentially more serious through COVID and has continued to get worse since then. So
Okay, you go, okay, I don't have to.
I'm Diane. Lovely to meet
Hi.
you. We're an advisory committee. We're trying to gather information. And from what I've understood is that, that my other half up there, John, we've actually, walked around and looked at the area, and there's really not a whole lot of off that we were talking about. So we're trying to find like is there anything that we could do to give people access and so be safe? Our top one is to be safe. And I don't know an answer at this moment, so that's why we're trying to do some fact finding. In looking at that, what you were mentioning about the one possibility is that we could reordinance a section. That's a possibility that we've done and are looking at other areas. The other thing is we could do an ordinance, say like on one side of the road, no parking, and changing it on the other side to allow X amount of parking. And also another aspect of this is the work that's being done on the dam and the possibility of having parking off the street and completed, which might help the whole situation, which we don't have the answer to that yet. We'll hear from Chris in just a little bit.
Who's doing that work? I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're
but-
good. You're good. Chris is representing Richmond Land Trust.
Richmond Land Trust
Yeah.
and Friends of Gillett Pond. So it's
Are they adding in
yeah, I'm here to
a
present.
breakdown lane kind of parking area?
No, I'm here to present all that
Okay,
as a next agenda item. And if you wanted to segue into that at any point, that's fine with me. Let the cat out of the bag for us.
If you have time, we'd love to hear what they have to say. if possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Could I comment
Barring-
first on a couple of things that have been said?
Sure.
First, though it may have been the driver of the state ordinance, my read of the word "or," thank you, says that it is also in violation of the Richmond traffic ordinance, and I can read that, but I don't think I need to. So we have to be careful about that. Is warning possible? My problem as a personal problem is that I've been telling people a few weeks ago, never has there been a parking problem, so I assume it's okay. If that's the case, there are people who are parking there with no signage otherwise, all of a sudden not getting a warning, but getting a ticket when there was no evidence from the past 50 years that there was a problem. I think that can easily be dealt with. I have no problem with that. And by the way, the problem is not with the police. The problem is with the town and its ordinance and what you do about it. Accidents on the road. Yes, lots going off the side. I live there. I do not remember ever an accident caused by people parking along the dam road.
Oh, there may not be.
Okay, let's just be clear. But that doesn't justify that there should be parking there. Don't get me wrong. I just want to make sure the record is clear. So I would advocate for warning.
Who is it that we're warning?
People who have parked there incorrectly for the first time.
Okay.
So that they
I have no idea who that is.
Well, I know it's, I'm sorry.
But I'm sorry, they have a registration, so you have a license.
We do not track parking tickets by registration number, the way that you're suggesting that we.
Well, let me recommend that as one of the solutions to smooth it over as we make the transition, that someone consider warning people. And I would like to think there would be a way to do that, but maybe there isn't.
When we write a parking ticket, it doesn't go on anybody's record.
But they have to pay a fine.
Right.
And what I'm
Into the
asking,
town office and they pay Diane.
I'm asking if it's a first time offense, given the 51-year experience, and given the fact that early in the winter, no purpose now the pond is useless. Early in the winter, I said, it's fine. So people go there, having been told by me, if no one else, it's okay. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes a fine. I'd like to think there's a way that we can smooth the transition to allow them to get an ordinance. Let me ask one other thing about that. There's a parking area that you will maybe refer to, which is down towards the Huntington end. It's a pullout. And the question is, will parking be allowed there? Since it's not on the,
Are you talking about the one that's at the far end of the other
I
pond?
am not talking about the town turnaround. I'm talking about the pullout where the Richmond Land Trust has put a sign in where people put in canoes. It is definitely a pullout. Now, I would presume that might be okay,
Is-
except for the ordinance, which says you cannot park in the town right of way. That pullout, among others,
Well,
is
we
in the
don't
town right
enforce-
of way.
We don't enforce anything that says you can't park in the town's right of way. The town's right of way is, I don't know exactly what it is, but like
Okay, good.
25 feet from the center of the road.
It's a travel.
Yeah,
So-
almost 25.
So that I like, then in that case, there would be absolutely no place in the town of Richmond where you could park on.
That's right. So that means there can be discretion.
So-
Hope I've clarified.
So my question, so just so I understand what we're saying, when we're going from Girl Scout camp heading to Huntington, Okay,
Yeah,
you're talking about the turnaround, usually the fishing people use that first turnaround.
no, I am talking about the pullout, which is approximately a
On the right,
tenth of a mile from the end of to the town line in Huntington. And so it is not the turnaround where the trucks and everyone.
As you're
else
heading
turns around.
towards,
As you're heading.
as you're heading
toward
away from
Huntington,
town, is it
Yeah.
on the right or the left?
It's on the right, it's on the opposite side of the road.
Okay, I know where you're talking about.
Yeah,
And absolutely, people can.
Oh, it's on the right. I see where you are.
Park there.
yes, but it is in the town right of way and the ordinance says you can't do that. And so just discretion says, makes sense to let people park there.
Right, we don't ticket anyone for parking in the town's right of way.
I'm not arguing about that. What
We
I'm
ticket
simply
people for
saying is that,
parking on the travel portion of the road.
yes, but in fact, both of those are prohibited by the current town ordinance. Both of them, because of the little two-letter word or. And so I hope everyone has looked at the ordinance and also the state ordinance, both of which say you can't park there. I agree completely. And so we got to figure out. I think you've got a perfectly reasonable solution.
Yeah, on the traveled portion of any town highway within the town highway right of way. Or
Or,
in,
there's an or there.
yes,
Or what?
or in any space here and after designated by the select board as an area where there shall be no parking. That those are the places you can't park, according
So-
to 6A.
So the or has nothing to do with the town's right of way.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. On the travel portion of any town highway or within the town highway right of way or in any
I didn't
space
hear
thereafter.
I didn't hear the first
Yeah.
word.
Well, he didn't say it. But there's a way to solve it, I'm sure.
Reword the ordinance.
I think I'm confused. I don't mean to say it again.
What's
but
that?
I'm a little confused at this point that's being made. It's just like.
Yeah.
You cannot park on the travel portion of the road.
That's correct. Or
Or,
in the town right of way, or with designated by the select board, where they identify critical areas such as Cochrane and
You
And
can park
so-
in.
So
the
what
town
is
right
the
of way.
town's, what is the town's right of way?
The town
I,
is,
there's
there's
the,
a space according to state statute, which is 49.5 feet wide.
okay,
so
so
you
that's
divide
the
it by-
state's right of way. What is the town's right of way?
I presume if you're saying the state carries the day, the town has no choice.
they carry the day. Okay.
Right,
Even on a
but
road.
that's the state's right of way.
Therefore, it must be the town's. I did, in fact, look at the zoning and I did look at the parking. And I haven't yet found what. the town-
I think this is kind of a
Yeah, I think so.
moot point.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that someplace in Richmond, there is some area that is referred to as the town's right of way. That they put up no
Oh,
parking.
yes,
So
there's-
should we ask the town attorney?
I think that would be wise.
Okay.
And all I can say is the town road foreman speaks of 20 or 25 feet, but that's anecdotal. It isn't fact. It's not fact.
Okay, let's ask the town attorney. It does seem plausible that all of this parking that we said was legal
it's all.
on
illegal.
Dugway Road is really not.
It's all illegal.
Yes, it does.
Technically, but you know, there's where discretion makes a difference.
Yes, that does.
And that puts you in an
go on.
awful place.
I struggle with discretion.
Sometimes discretion does. I don't think it does in this case. I think it's pretty clear that you can't park where the cars drive and you can park where the cars don't drive. Regardless of how many oars there are in the sentence.
Well, we'll ask the attorney.
I don't think, we're a committee. We have no power, right? The only power we have is to advise the select board. But I think if we or a select board tells someone, a police officer, that not to ticket a certain area, then there is no discretion, right? Their discretion to take it. I think we've told them to do that. I struggle a little bit with the fact that our committee here has worked for 6 months to come up with town ordinances to create safe parking for people, create a livable town of Richmond. We're going to suggest that possibly the fines get raised a little bit. And then in our next breath, we're saying, oh, by the way, these ordinances aren't that important. You don't need to enforce them.
Well,
all the
and
time.
that's
what hurts me a
where
little
this
bit.
is gonna end up.
Yeah.
Is if we're gonna have an ordinance that says you can't park in the road, but we're not gonna enforce it when the local people want to use Gillette Pond. We're only gonna enforce it when the out of town people want to park their cars on Dugway Road. You're opening a big can of worms and the town is gonna lose.
I must say that it would be less than 1% of the people who use the pond by the dam who live in the town of Richmond.
What's gonna happen is that pond's gonna be beautiful. In another year or two, there's gonna be people
Right.
coming from everywhere.
Well, they already do.
right.
So it's
So-
not just.
Problem.
As this goes on, it's going to get more and more and more.
That's gonna be a problem. I
What
agree.
happened on Dugway. And so what's gonna end up happening is there's gonna be no parking signs put up along the side of the road, and then there's nothing to worry about.
So I think that's the next thing we need to chat with Pete about is that the town of Richmond tends to put, in for instance, if you want to go, the town of Richmond tends to put the signs that say no parking on travel portion of road near areas where there is parking. Sounds counterintuitive, but the thought is, if you look at Dugway Road, every time there's a good turnoff where you can put 2 or 3 cars, the sign at the end of that spot says no parking on travel portion of road, indicating that's where it ended.
Right.
This
Don't park
is the
past me
statute.
Up here.
And so that's probably why every 100 feet of Richmond doesn't have a no parking on travel portion of the road sign on it. Whether it's gonna be Gillette's Pond or West White Hill or whatever.
She, want to go ahead?
Can I share the document?
Yes,
Oh, I
yes.
guess I am sharing the document.
Wait, before we go on, Bob, could you tell me what that state statute, what number was? I didn't get it.
I don't think I have the state statute here, but John, I believe you do.
6A?
I could be Title 23 Motor Vehicles, Chapter 13 Operation of Operation of Vehicles, Subchapter 10 Stopping, Standing, and Parking.
Is what we're talking about.
And let me say, it looks to me like the town regulations are very much parallel to that, with the exchange of the word traffic committee for select board.
I'm sending this to
So
the
they're the same.
That
board member or
in-
committee members. Okay,
all ordinances across the state that have something that cover something similar to state law, it's pretty
Yeah.
often they are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
no,
I just thought this was germane to the discussion. This is signage that the Land Trust posted on the Dugway at the request of Chief Buck, who produced this. I don't know where he got the source information for the 20 feet or anything else, but I was just showing you, this is what we posted at his request. It's probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I'm not sure if we maintain those signs or not, because the signs are getting ripped up and thrown away all the time.
Yeah, they've, some of them have been replaced. These are still on Dugway Road.
Okay.
they're quite good.
They're great.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that the vast majority of the parking tickets that I write, I can take a photograph of the car that's parked illegally with this in the photograph.
Yeah.
Like, these are posted in places where people park improperly. And that's where we write most of our tickets. So it's, I don't know, I don't know where the 20 feet came from. The 20 feet is it's not even standard.
We were told at the time that it provided two-way traffic and allowed emergency vehicles to get through, and that was the priority.
A side note, Pete would love for that sign to change and say, rather than not safe, say illegal and legal.
What Pete would really like is to have each one of those signs customized to the spot where it's put.
He would really like.
Yeah,
Because every once in a while, somebody will say, but the picture shows,
They're supposed to.
and you're like, yeah, this is just a reference.
Or maybe.
I know it's more work for you guys, but those signs are quite good.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
as you're looking at this, what I can tell you what normally happens and what I foresee happening someday, probably 2 years from now on by Gillette Pond, is that if you were to take those 3 cars and shift them forward about a quarter of a car length, that's going to put that first car just over the line and the last car just over the line.
Yep.
And what typically ends up happening, and this is why we have to be, you know, the mean cops that go up and just write everybody tickets. That car's just over the line a little bit, probably not causing a problem. The problem is the next car that comes along and says, well, that car is okay, so I must be okay. And then they park the way the not safe cars parked. And now you can't get you can't get a fire truck or an ambulance through.
Is,
Um,
is there a way for remote participants to ask questions?
Yeah, do you have a hand raised on there or?
No, I can try that though.
I know who it is.
Do you know that?
No idea.
I think it's John Lowe. I think.
what was the
What was
question?
the question? Go for it.
I guess the question is,
Wait, can you identify yourself, please?
yeah, Jonathan Lowe, West White Hill.
Okay.
I guess my question is, rather than spending all this minutia on the ordinance that's written, is there a way that we can promote safe parking either by rewording the ordinance or putting up signs that do allow both our local residents and our visitors to actually park with some common sense and give the police officers the ability to ticket folks that are not using common sense, such as, can we change the ordinance to impeding two-way traffic? Or like Diane said, can we put up areas along certain roads where it is safe to park even if you are in the traveled lane? Because essentially, as a town taxpayer, I can park in my driveway or a parking spot in the village of Richmond, but I can park nowhere else in town right now, the way the ordinance is written. And that's very discouraging as a taxpayer, someone who likes to hunt. So we're going to start ticketing hunters, or are we going to start ticketing people just stopping to go for a walk on a straight, clear line of sight road? You know, how do we find the middle ground where it can be effective and safe for everyone by rewriting something as opposed to arguing over what the existing says?
I guess what we asked the select board or proposed to the select board that they modify the traffic ordinance. I guess we can say what has changed here is we have an officer that's writing tickets based on the town ordinance, and we have the ability to change the town ordinance. The state statute still exists, but to our knowledge, that isn't come into play here. And we could investigate changes in addition to perhaps making off-street parking.
And I would also be very curious what the right of way on our road actually is, because the road's been widened at least twice in the last 10 years to the point where the ditches might actually be outside of the town right of way. And so at what point does the traveled way become 3 cars wide if we just keep widening the road? Well, you know, what actually defines a traveled way? Where a certain distance from the center line, or where you could drive if you wanted to?
Is it a 3-rod road?
That I don't know. I would have to check on that.
I think it is.
It is 24.5 feet wide at the dam, which is slightly more than the width of Cochrane Road as a comparison. How do I know? I
What is-
measured it.
What is 24 feet? The road or the
Width
right
of
of
the
way?
road from the one side tire mark furthest out to furthest to the edge, to the other tire mark furthest to the edge, which means it's an underestimate. But so there's your width information.
My guess is it's designed to be a 21-foot road there.
There's the right of way. These are the approximate right of way. These lines here,
The dotted ones?
dash dot.
Yeah.
Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, they can.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
there's
would be
lots of lines on
25
this.
feet. That would be 25 feet?
I'm not sure. I can't find a marking on here.
But
that
again,
says
that's
what
the right of way, not the travel portion of the road.
Correct.
Correct.
Should we now have Fritz go, and in the agenda has another 15 minutes here, which we could exceed. Would that make sense?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Chief, do you have any finishing thoughts or?
Oh, yeah, before we.
Is that
go-
what they're doing?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can go ahead and give you a presentation.
Well, it looks like there's gonna be 6 parking spots
Yes.
installed. I mean, there are occasionally more than 6 cars up there, but I think if there's, my observation has been that when there are more than 6 cars there, there's people playing hockey. Is that a fairly reasonable?
That is part of the audience, depending on the condition. Most recently, it's actually been walkers and skiers because the ice has been awful. In fact, nobody right at the moment should go on the pond at all, I believe, because of
Or
the
Lake
various
Champlain.
conditions.
Yeah.
And so the problem is the 6 on a good weekend, mixed use, 10 to 20 cars have been parked at the dam. What's the record? I don't know, but I can tell you a few Martin Luther King weekend ago, several, there were more than 100 by my count, people on the pond at any moment in time. I would guess there were 30 or 40 cars there and the same at the other end. So we're never going to deal with that.
Right, there's no way to put 40 cars there safely. Like,
I absolutely agree.
and the problem is,
Yeah.
you could get 39 of the most responsible,
But
attentive people to show up, and they could park their cars in the road. And because they're responsible and attentive, there's not gonna be a problem. It's when the 40th car shows up and that person parks their car just like everybody else did, but without checking, they kick their driver's door open. And then they go to the back of the car and get their stuff out and leave the door open, and they stack their stuff next to the driver's side of the car in the roadway. And like, that's what the problem is. Most of the cars, even when they're not, even if they're parked like maybe a little bit in the road, like you were saying about, being reasonable and using discretion because they're not really causing problems. That's where you run into a problem. Is you give discretion for some, you have to give discretion for everyone. And then that's where you run into issues.
What's the convenient thing about, I think, about Gillette's Pond is that, in my mind, there's 3 groups of people who use Gillette Pond. There's skaters, hockey players, there's fishermen, and then there's also a couple of guys that trap up there. But the pond is laid out in such a way that each one of them has their own section. So the skaters tend to be down toward the dam, it seems. It seems just about up where the first turnaround is by the open water. That tends to be where the fishing guys go on. Then, of course, up in the swamp and all that's where the trappers hang out. One of the better parking spaces is there, but it's actually in Huntington. It's actually just across the line.
That's what when you guys were saying earlier about turnaround, the turn off, whatever you were saying.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about that. I was gonna say, you can do whatever you want there.
And it's funny
It's in
because
Huntington.
if you look at the place where I'm gonna say where the fisherman park, where it's got the quick access to the pond there. On some of the digital maps, you look at that and that shows up as an intersection. And I don't know how that can be, but I want to look into that.
There it is.
Yeah, right in the middle, right next to the pond. So that spot that's in Richmond where you just can turn around, you could 2 or 3 cars in there without too much trouble.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't get it, but whether that was once a boat launch or not, or whether that was a boat launch at one point in time or not, I don't know.
So please ask someone who's lived there for 51 years, where the skaters are, where the fisher people are, where the skiers
then
are,
correct
where
me.
the walkers are.
Everywhere.
I only know because I fish there, and I rarely ever see a skater up as far as I am. I've only been there for 30 years, so I don't have
Okay,
your history.
that's okay.
Should Fritz go now? And if Chief
Yeah.
Herrick, if you have more to say,
No, if I misspoke, I want to be corrected.
oh, sorry.
No, I felt bad that I overspoke. This is just an observation on my part.
That's right, and mine is anecdotal as well, only it's based on someone who's there every weekend, basically, and
But
on the
again-
pond. Feasible.
So are the skaters using the entire pond then?
It depends on where the ice is. It's
Right.
at the dam, it's
So-
at the junction, and most recently and often, the best is at the Huntington end.
Okay, and I'm basically, all I'm basing my experience on is where they shovel up to skate and when there's snow on the ice. I tend not to see that shoveling happening way up to where we fish.
John Lowe's wanting to say something, I think, but we also wanted to hear from Fritz.
Yeah, I think we should hear from Fritz. I think the whole point of who's using the pond and why is irrelevant, has nothing to do with where they park. We're not going to ticket one group different than another group. It's moot in my mind. It's more about using common sense and having an ordinance that the police can enforce in a way that keeps everyone safe. And about, in my mind, it's about impeding traffic or not impeding traffic. And if we're gonna talk about two-way impeding traffic, what happens? Why aren't we ticketing on the 4th of July? You can't get a fire truck out of town on the 4th of July without a police escort, the way we allow people to park.
Fritz,
You agree?
I totally agree. I absolutely agree.
Yeah,
So there's a point where we're using discretion and common sense, and that's how do we write the ordinance to allow everyone to find the sweet spot in the middle where we can still recreate, but we can still use our discretion to ticket people who are not using common sense.
All right, Fritz. Most common sense guy I know.
So I'm here not to weigh in too much, even though I did weigh in a little bit. I just want to explain what we've got planned, what we're already starting, and why we made the decisions we did, and how it's germane to your discussion, just as a point of information. So this is the site plan for the dam. I'm going to explain a few lines here. If everybody can see my cursor, I'm tracing a line here. And that line is important because that's the limit of disturbance that we can do on the soil around the dam. And this is germane. I mean, this is important for several of the permits that we have, including the Army Corps of Engineers, the shoreland permit, I think the DRB, and a lot of this is due to bank stabilization, stormwater runoff, everything else. This area so the size of this parking lot is basically dictated by the maximum area that we can actually disturb the soil. And it's the minimum necessary for the construction of the dam itself. So back here, we have a dashed line where the coffer dam is going in. And so you can see that there's clearing there and soil disturbance can occur in that area. And it's also true of the dam site itself. But you can see also areas where trees are left behind. We have done all this clearing. So all this clearing happened towards the end of January. So all those trees are gone. You can actually go out and see the site now and see approximately where the parking is going to be just by where the trees are. So the 6 parking spots, when they do the construction, they'll be putting 2-inch gravel down for their construction equipment. I imagine they'll put this dash line, which is called a level spreader, which just prevents drainage water from eroding the bank here and spreads out the drainage of that bank. I imagine they'll have that in place, and they'll also have other soil mitigation or erosion mitigation in place. This dash line also shows the sight lines to the curb cut here. So they have to be, we have to have the good proper sight lines for the roadway. The parking lot will be just pea gravel in the end. And even though it designates 6 official parking spots, which are standard 18-foot long by 9-foot wide or 8-foot wide, I can't remember, parking lots, we know that just like the River Shore Preserve, people are going to be very creative, and there'll probably be 8 or 10 cars there, if not more.
yeah,
It's very well phrased.
Yeah.
absolutely.
This part of the roadway, there is going to be a ditch, and so that's
Yeah.
going to prevent anybody from actually doing any parking along that spot. I don't know how all other areas are going to finish out. If there's going to be, gravel along here that can get people out of the travel portion of the roadway or not. But this will be, we're going out to bid this week, and we plan on having the parking lot finished by the fall. We don't know because we've raised funds that we know we have enough to actually replace the dam We don't know how the bids are gonna come in. We have very good estimates, but still, we just need to get the dam replaced. And if we run out of money, then we'll have to do more fundraising before we can do the parking lot, and also the veneer on the dam is a possibility too. So each of those items are, when we go out to bid, are separate items in the bid so that we can pay for the dam, and then they'll tell us how much it costs for the parking lot and how much for the stone veneer,
Right.
and then we can do those options.
Fritz, can I ask a question? This is John.
Yeah, John.
This is very interesting. Looks well thought out. The number 6, did that come because that was how many people you thought should go there, or how much space was potentially usable, or how much money you had? Where did the number come from?
Just the area that we had, and I don't know, the engineers designed a kind of a standard parking lot. It's gonna be a lot like the River Shore Preserve. It's just gonna be a big gravel area. There's not gonna be lines painted
Or diagrams.
or diagrams. Yeah. There will be some sign.
And Fritz, did you say ideally, fall 2023, it'll be done?
Yeah, the plan is, we're going out to bid, and if we get, caveats all along the way. If everything works out right, we'll get a contractor that'll begin construction in the summer. It'll be finished. It has to be finished by October, I think. And the parking lot will at least be 2-inch gravel. But I don't know, it won't be a finished parking area. And unless we can afford it, and then it should be done by the fall.
That's gonna be maintained by as far as plowed goes, is that by the land trust, the town, or who's gonna
It's
plow
all,
that?
it's private land, so it's
Right.
land trust land, so it will be us.
Within the down.
Donna,
Yeah, we do have a stewardship endowment, so
we,
it's the same as we pay for the Willis Hill parking lot to be plowed.
John Cone.
Yes.
You have a picture of that site, don't you?
Oh,
Like-
gosh. Yeah, I had them. Hang on, let me just get this.
We were just out there on Saturday, we took pictures of, because we thought, wow, that looks like a nice spot over there.
Yeah.
So it looked like and is, prior to parking, is that where, the construction material is gonna go? So
Yeah,
it's already gonna be, packed down in some.
Exactly,
and
exactly.
and trees cleared out in another way.
Where I was going earlier with the Who Parks Where thing was really that one of the things we fight with is that in our minds, we create these parking areas for purpose A. And what happens is the cyclists find it, or
Oh, yeah.
the runners find it, or whatever. And I wasn't at all trying to know more than anybody else does, but we see it on Doug. We have these great spots to go, this is where the swimmers park. And every car has a bike rack on it. You're thinking, no, they're not parking here.
Wait till Lucas Campbell shows up with his ice boat.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I have those pictures, Diane, if you need them. Do they help?
I got a Duran Road picture
I
here.
have one
This is from
picture.
standing in Durand Road right here.
That's standing in Durand Road. I have. That's looking up the road when they were clearing.
Actually.
That's kind of a panorama of the whole site right now. That's the area around the dam.
Yeah. I have
That's
this
the-
same pictures. Yeah.
So that's
gonna be the parking.
Yeah, except that's, the logs are gone.
Yeah, John, actually, you have more recent pictures if you want. I don't really. know.
Yeah, if you want.
But I agree. I could imagine 10 cars going in there. Creatively parked.
Oh,
Here we go.
You're underestimating their creativity.
A good Richmond skater who put 10 cars in there.
All right, so we're standing in Durand Road right here.
This
Now,
is
they park along
Durand.
Duran Road as well.
Notice the blue sky. Just-
That's
It's
affordable.
it's
It's too
not
tight.
barely
Yeah.
wide enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when the people removing the trees had their truck there, the police justified and said, you have to move.
Yeah, I couldn't even
Because
get by it.
the emergencies can't
All right,
get
so
through.
there is the dam on the left and here's the one to the right, John, a little bit more.
Is the water level gonna come back up to where it used to be?
The water level is probably gonna be about 1 to 2 feet higher.
That's pretty good then.
Then it
At the old Corps of Engineers
has,
number.
that's the historic level based on.
So this
Wrong.
right here is to the left where, okay, stop right there, John. So that's where the, like, I like the other one you had there. So that's right there. That's where most of the cars park.
Right now,
In
yeah.
here.
That's where the cars park now. They
Yeah.
used to park on the other side. They
Yeah.
used to park going up the hill.
Yeah.
And they still do some or
And-
did.
Well, yeah,
Well-
I'm sure.
Yeah. And we were-
One thing,
Hi, John.
oh, one thing that did occur to us is just like on Dugway Road, one simple thing that we might want to do, as soon as possible is we may want to indicate that one side of the road is no parking, in which case you'll never have that pinch point where people who are doing reasonable things on their side create an unreasonable situation in the interior. So if we were to at least mark off one side as no parking, you would never have a blockage. And that's sort of kind of simple approach that we took with Dugway.
In my mind, I picture they're mainly parking on John Lowe's side of the road as opposed to.
John
opposite.
Lowe's, not Bob Lowe's.
Right, that's my question. They tend to park on the pond side, call it.
But they do both sides and that's a disaster.
And that's where it becomes a problem.
That's the disaster. Yeah. And I think kind of as a common sense thing, it would make sense, I think, to consider blocking one side just for public safety while we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out the rest of it.
If there are going to be cars parked there, they should be parked on the inside of that corner. The
Gotcha. The pond side.
the pond side of the road.
Mhm.
And I'm not the grand poobah of anything. If I were, and I would do the same thing on Dugway Road, I would add another 6 feet of gravel, the whole length of that, and say, park there. And 6 feet, put them still in the road a little bit, but they're gonna be far enough off that it's not gonna be an issue.
So you bring up a part that we talked about with Pete is, so he has these ditches for drainage that keeps all of our.
The
roads-
ditch back.
Well, hold on a second. So I.
He's got the brand new machine.
We're always both of the grand poobah. That's what I want to know.
Chief Herrick, are you talking about here? Or you're talking about on the inside curve side, you would put that where would you put that 6 feet?
Exactly what
That's
you're talking
right where
about.
right where your arrow is,
So my point
on
though.
that side of the road.
Wait, let me finish my point. Let me finish my
Sorry.
point. Let me
I
finish
think
my
that's gonna
point.
be wetland.
talked to
but I think
Pete.
Further up, you could do it.
I talked to Pete and I said, can we not do drainage and cover the top of it? He said, yes, it's just it's gonna cost some money. So you could create a drainage system over there instead of the ditches and cover it up. I have no idea how much it's gonna cost per car, but it is a possibility. Yeah, it is a
Yeah,
possibility.
I would do from right about where the arrow is right now,
It's okay.
right there. Moving away from the parking area that's being, that direction,
No. we
right
can't.
there. I would do 120 feet of that 6 feet. And
It'd be
you'll
excellent.
get, that's another 10 cars
Yeah.
anyway, at least.
Can,
Well, maybe not 10 cars.
We have to
but-
get, we'll have to get on site with Pete, really.
But let me argue for the other side. When I walk along that road, which has curves, when I get to a curve, I always walk on the outside edge. So that max people can see me. That might argue also because of drainage, that it would make sense to have your 6 feet on the west side.
correct.
Don, can you let me share again? Because it might be better to look at the map.
Yeah.
Sure. Which is, did I just leave? Yeah. What is west? Which is west, Bob? I'm
West
sorry.
is towards Lake Champlain, our property.
Right.
Next to
Oh,
Bob.
your side, the Bob side or John side or Jonathan's side?
So you're talking about 6 feet all along
Yeah.
here.
I love town.
Or the other.
You can't do that.
Does that become a wetland issue?
Yeah, can I bring a point up?
I don't know, but.
I'll note we're going a little over our agenda, but it seems like it's a productive discussion, so, okay.
Can someone who takes care of that ditch offer some advice?
Sure.
And that is,
My
Um,
decision.
that
Everything's up-
inside, that inside ditch is quite deep and quite wide. And it is almost actually, ironically, the dam never fails, but that ditch fails and washes the road out on occasion. And if you're going to try to fill it in and let water drain, you'd be much better off using the opposite side.
So
There's-
so it
there's-
wasn't gonna fill it in, it was gonna create a drainage system that was underground as opposed to a system that was exposed on the top.
Can I jump
I,
in?
I understand that, but I'm regularly cleaning out my culvert and the culvert that's there from debris. And I just, from a water management standpoint, it seems like confining the water from where it wants to be it's a little defeating. You never try to fight water like that. At the opposite side, doesn't have a ditch. It would be very easy and very low maintenance, short term and long term.
If I can jump in, this discussion should probably be made in light of this construction. The usage pattern, I think, is going to change. I don't know, John, if you plan on still allowing people to cross over on your side of the dam to access the pond there? Or is it all going to shift towards the parking area and that side of the pond? I don't know the answer, but there's also these sight lines to a new curb cut that are suddenly going to be in the
Right.
issue. And there's this whole drainage here that's all
So you
going to be
can't,
coming to play.
right, you don't want to mess up the sight lines by parking on the same side of the road as your curb cut. To answer the first question, I'm going to use my discretion like I always have, that as long as people use common sense, I'll never post my property. Don't plan on it.
Great.
So yeah, I would be concerned about putting excess parking on the same side as the line of sight. If you are actually worried about traffic implications, you'd be much better off. I believe, but again, this is a site visit with Pete and maybe with the police department about where line of sight should be. Case in point, at the bottom of West White Hill, the existing or the old West White Hill where it meets Cochrane Road is now parking for 3 or 4 cars. When those cars are parked legally, the line of sight coming out of West White Hill, if you're not in a 3/4 ton trucker's hauler, is incredibly dangerous. But those cars are parked legal because they're in the line of sight for the curb cut, the new curb cut that was put in about 8 or 10 years ago. So I think as we plan this, we need to actually go up there and sit in a chair and look at where we actually want people parking and not parking.
And I also feel that there's gonna be a lot of construction work happening, and even, we may not even know the end until it's done, and then take a new look at it.
Right. But what I really like about this is now we're coming up with the police department, and we should get the road department in the scenario where we have a compromise where we might be able to actually have some overflow parking that people agree don't impede traffic or make things unsafe. And that's the end goal, as opposed to the black and white on the words on the piece of paper.
And we'll have an opportunity for signage in the parking area, and we'll probably have a signboard or a kiosk.
I don't know if the police officer in the room has experience exiting West White Hill in a low slung vehicle with another low slung vehicle coming towards you, and a pickup legally parked in the old West White Hill curb cut.
Well, in the Tesla, you
Not a
can
good,
look under the
not a
car.
good, oh, can we not do the pass? Sorry.
And unfortunately, it's a repeat action.
You're absolutely correct. The exiting that road, between the fact that you've got a rise because of the bridge, you've got cars that, again, the first 2 or 3 that show up that are responsible, mindful people that are paying attention to what they're doing, they're not the problem. It's the one that shows up and goes, well, they parked there, so I can too, and crams their car in right on the edge.
I would beg to differ. If you stop behind the stop sign, you can't see over the car before you pull out. We're even illegally parked. Same thing happens where Cochrane Road hits Route 2, but that's unfortunately a state right away we can't do anything about. So it's just an example of
It's not a good, it's not a good situation.
finding real life compromise by going to the scene and fitting it to the scene as opposed to the piece of paper.
Do we need,
First, I would suggest on your signage, if you put on your signage that parking for Gillette's Pond users only or something, might go a long way in saving those spots from.
That's true.
'Cause we, like I said, we devise these great parking areas, thinking these are where somebody's gonna go. And somebody else goes there and the overflow goes where it shouldn't go. But totally up to you. It's private property, obviously, and it's probably your call on it. I'm just trying to alleviate the headaches.
You can suggest, you can always suggest, you can always suggest.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yes, I do
walkers,
suggest
a
in
lot of walkers try to park there. But it's good.
They'll continue.
should we come up with any action items or just continue with the discussion here?
Great question. Um, this is a work in progress, it sounds like. This is a great conversation. A site visit would be a really good one, and having Pete along would also be a
Yeah.
really good one. And
I also want to say that I don't want to be named as the person who suggested taking 6 feet of people's front lawns. That was-
Hey, officer, do you want that redacted or I only said that, I only captured that you mentioned it right up here.
Yeah, Josh and I talked about that on Dugway Road, some of the options of trying to add, like, where could you add things? And that's really what it comes down to is you're regardless of where you do it, you're still within the right of way, but you're changing what's been. And there's no good.
we walked Dugway so much.
Yeah.
We can't come up, we can't make more land.
Yeah,
This is-
yeah, you know, there's no all good option.
In the back of my mind on the Gillette's Pond is I wonder if we can reach an agreement with the Girl Scout camp to possibly use some of their parking area.
If they-
They're now run by the New Hampshire Council and they're not very busy up there like they used to be.
If you moved that gate, I don't know exactly how far it is, 150 feet. So if you go up there, you
To the
guys
end
have
of
probably
the
all
parking.
been up there.
Yes.
You go up that hill and there's a clearing right there. And then at the back of the clearings, everything narrows down again. And if they were to open that clearing up. Now, and then you're getting into, it's their property and liability and that, whatever, but.
Totally get it,
somebody
but-
Slips on the hill going down to the pond, who's gonna be the one that.
That's definitely worth pursuing, though I'll warn you, they're not easy to deal with. But I want to make sure you ask Lisa or Tegan if they want to say anything.
Lisa or Tegan, you can unmute yourself if you have something to say. Can you unmute yourself if you need to?
I'm just listening. It's fascinating. I don't have anything to add, but I'm taking a lot away. I hope you don't want it back.
Thank you, Lisa.
I shared that document with JR and JC. I didn't have anybody else's.
All right, and Tegan, if you have anything, you're welcome to add it.
Yes, no, I'm in the same boat as Lisa, just listening.
Okay.
But lots of good conversation.
It's nice to get on the early side. I think, from the project being completed. Rather than.
I think your action should be this discussion and the notion that someone should look into the generic issue of carving out parking in the right places and the specific issue of considering widening the road at Gillett Pond as the model to see how it goes.
So we can investigate if how more parking could be added, including on the side of West White. There's the issue with the attorney to understand what the town ordinance really says. Or any other thing?
I think the town would want to consider the generic issue first. Should it be in the business of doing this anywhere?
Yeah.
And if it is, here is a model to look into it.
Okay,
Anything else we need to add to that? And this will be an ongoing discussion for our group, for sure.
Get a bow out.
Go.
I think, no, I agree, but I think Bob has some great points.
Yeah.
We need to have a better understanding of what the town is trying to say. And I want to be sure that if we change the town ordinance, that we can ignore the state statute.
You cannot ignore the state statute.
Right.
The town cannot, on any law ever, make something allowed that the state says is not allowed.
So that's why I'm trying to understand why it's worthwhile to change the town ordinance. If we can't, if it's superseded by the state.
That's where the discussion starts. What is the art of the possible with regard to state parking statutes?
Thank you very much.
You may very well end up saying there's nothing that can be done.
Right.
That's where you start. And I think you have that. There may be others, but
Yeah, okay.
I think it may preclude this.
All right, so, and anything else we want to, talk about before we move on to the next agenda item?
John Lowe's hand still raised, or is that a new raise?
No, it's
Figured it-
down.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, nice, John.
All right,
Thank you, Chief Eric, for
thank
coming.
you so.
Absolutely.
much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Tough job. You knew that.
It can be.
There may be a field trip in our offing. We'll get,
I love field trips. But no, like, if you guys, anytime, if you guys want to go up and actually walk this and look at what might be a good idea in one place versus another or whatever. Same thing with Dudley Road. I'm happy to go up and walk the road.
no, we certainly involve the Lowe's and we involve Pete and if only two of us show up, it's not because we aren't sincere about this. It's that open meeting for laws thing that makes our life. So, but I think that would be a good next step for us.
Okay, the one, you have to warn them.
How many tickets? John, how many tickets were there?
You will. I don't know.
Wait, was it one? How many tickets were written, do you know?
On-
That created this?
I didn't know there were any tickets written.
I don't think there were any. Well, when I checked with Diane at the office, Chief Eric, I believe 99% of them, 90% were Dugway Road, 99% included Dugway Road and Cochrane Road, and all the others were in town, I believe.
No, the question was, this firestorm kind of got started recently with some tickets being put up on West White, which has always been.
Yeah, these are, you mean, more
I get it.
currently, yeah.
I think that's correct. And Just Arneson thought some had been written, but I believe the answer is no at this point.
Well, Allison may have written some tickets up there. I don't know. I don't get like, she doesn't write a ticket and then give it to me to be approved. She writes a ticket, it goes right to Diane. Diane plugs it into the, it's probably an Excel spreadsheet that she got. And then that's it.
We reached out to Diane, Diane would have the answer for us.
Well, if you want to know, I can ask Allison if she's written anything.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
According to Allison, she's not really great at handing tickets to Diane, so that she's not always up to date.
Do you want that right now? Cause I can sit down and send her a message and she'll probably answer me.
Why not?
All right,
If it's that smooth, then let's.
Tell her we said hi. We really appreciate her help.
I can tell you, when she goes by, with the PA system she has, says you have to move.
Yeah, she
She
did.
does
that.
not stop and get a ticket,
She
in
did
my
that
experience.
She has done that before, yeah.
So we do that on Dugway Road during the summer. That's where that came from. We do that.
Yeah.
Fairly frequently on Dugway Road during the summer. We go up, suddenly there's all these cars parked the way they shouldn't be. The problem is the people who drive the cars are 200 feet down the hill. And we're not gonna get out and walk down at triple buckets and then and then walk down at the next access and then walk down at the next. So we'll just say on the PA, this is the Richmond Police Department, we're doing parking enforcement. In 10 minutes, we're writing tickets to cars that are parked illegally. Drive up the road, turn around, wait 10 minutes, come back down through and write tickets or tow cars, whatever. That's really the only way to broadly give people a heads up this is about to happen. The other thing I typically do is anybody who I see like heading down the hill, I'll say, hey, listen, if you want a bunch of good Samaritan points for the day, when you get down there, tell people I'm up here and that we're dealing with cars. So
Well, okay.
That's where that idea came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked.
It's not as bad in Gillette Pond, except for you got your skates on, so you're seeing.
Around the corner, but it
You're
worked.
unlacing your
They
skates.
work, they move.
All right, while the chief does that, should we move on?
Sure.
Okay. Is it the language that we want to get finalized or work on a plan to finalize it in the next, is it Wednesday that it's due? Is that correct?
So we're on the,
So this agenda item, just discuss proposed changes to the traffic ordinance that, and we think of this as what was not finalized at the select board meeting a week ago.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
due Wednesday, right?
drafted something. I'm not at all attached to it. I don't know if you saw it. I sent it out in an email. Where I removed the feet and put it in with Town Highway number 5 Duxbury Road and then the Edmund Bridge. And I'm not at all attached to this, but it was just a potential starting point.
Josh needs it by the 15th, so on Wednesday.
every Wednesday.
Yeah. I actually did look at this. I thought the 25 feet was, gravy. We thought it was 15 feet, so.
So we just need a plan to get something to Josh.
Do we formally present again, or just were there in attendance? Are they asking any questions or how that piece?
He wanted something to put into the packet that goes to the select board for the following Monday. He said he needed it by Wednesday.
And figure that we go along with this just so that they're,
A map or.
so
Okay.
they're not trying to interpret what.
Yeah,
Does that give you an entree into the issue of whether the town should investigate substantive changes in the ordinance? Because there would have to be substantive changes if this kind of plan at Gillett Pond would come forward.
there's been discussion of a timeline of wanting to get this done quickly.
Oh, I agree.
Potentially-
Oh, no, I agree.
It does.
This is there, and this is what we think is right, and I looked at it, it looked pretty good to me. But be forewarned that we're gonna come forward to you guys in the futures, thinking something more substantive may be important. But get this cleared and done. I agree.
We're
John,
looking for
did
a
you
new
get to see
project.
the language
Yes,
that I gave as a starting point?
Yeah. Do you want me to put it up?
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Hang on one second.
My only comment too is this is a carryover. It's Diane and I talked about this. So, and on the south side of Town Highway 3, Cochrane Road, from the intersection with Duxbury Road to 63 feet from West White. So that makes it sound like it's stopping short. Is that like, am I
So
reading that?
it's all about how these town ordinances are written, and again, I'm not an expert on this at all, but you take one of them, it talks like that. I have one.
Oh, there we go. And I didn't touch that language.
But
And what is the 63 foot? Is that that's,
again, I'd probably get rid of that if we didn't measure that. I just say what John said from Duxbury Road to.
Well, unfortunately, that 63 feet is, I mean, I think you removed everything but that as a foot, is a linear length. Is that true? I think the problem with that is, if I recall, that space is just beyond the existing Edmonds parking. I don't know, there's no landmark there that.
Well, we could just, again, it's essentially from Duxbury Road to the Edmonds Bridge.
That's what it's, are you able to see this?
Oh,
no,
okay. We can
oh,
see here.
the email?
No, are you able to see? I'm sharing it right now, aren't I?
We're reading it now.
Okay.
Who came up with the 63 feet? Anyone in the room?
It was from the center line of West White Hill to the beginning of the Edmonds parking lot.
Oh, wait a minute, from the
But you find
intersection.
it fine with the center line of West White Hill is.
Wait, was it the center line, Diane, or the
That was from
the edge?
So, but we could forget that, and essentially it's on both sides of the road from Duxbury. I mean, if they'll take that language, which I think is fantastic language, essentially both sides of the road from Duxbury Road intersection to the Edmonds Bridge.
But with that-
then we ban that parking area that Pete created on the old.
Yeah, the only thing I would say,
Taking out 263 feet, then it makes sense to me.
well, I would say that's fine. The only thing we add back,
Excluding the.
excluding the marked parking area at Edmonds.
Yes, do you see what he said? Like, so
Yeah.
if we say Duxbury Road, both sides of the road, excluding the off-street parking and Edmonds parking.
Is it Edmund or Edmonds?
Edmonds, good catch.
Edmund.
Edmund, yeah.
An interesting person, if you actually historically look into it.
Like a Leahy kind of person, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, because so if you did that from the center line, so that would be with the lane, probably
So-
15 feet, and then plus another 25 feet from the intersection. So you're up to 40. Just so that you can't park 25 feet from the intersection, right? So
And-
that area where they have roped off, that should actually be covered.
Because even though you did the right thing, 25 plus the 15, Pete wants it a little bit more because then they park on the side of the road there.
Yeah.
He wants to stop, he wants it ending. And so you can't go, one car on the side, one on the other side. or-
Yeah.
Do
So
you
how would you
think
sign?
we
So if
can
we
get
set it
away?
there-
Great. I think it's time that we
So if we,
painted that Edmonds parking area.
so what would happen if we said, no person shall park along the roadside on either side of the road between the Duxbury Road and the Edmund Bridge?
Comma excluding.
I'm thinking at that point, the word roadside allows the parking at the old West White Hill entrance there.
Oh, I like that. Did you hear that?
It's just
Noah?
simple, I think it's just short
I
and simple.
I like it as long as no one is confused by that existing parking.
Oh, yes.
In an area not specifically designated for parking.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
I
sounds-
like
And how
that.
many-
Ah,
Got the language.
how many tickets?
I know, she hasn't answered me yet.
I think that's very good. But if you look at the ordinance as written, you cannot park in the right of way anywhere.
we're gonna look at that, Bob. I mean, that makes a lot of, that changes everything all over the town.
So it becomes almost moot.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you
But
get into
you
that.
can't, ask the attorney. I think you gotta move ahead. with
We've
this.
got that as a
argument
to
is-
do.
The ordinance already says you can't do it.
I don't think that's the way it's interpreted, but I understand why you're
That's why
interpreting it
the
that
key,
way.
that's why the word or is so important,
Yes.
as you pointed out.
You missed that part of the conversation.
Get caught up later.
Just when you-
All
just
right,
when you
I'll-
think you know what you know, you don't know it.
How are we gonna move forward here? Do we, is one person gonna send something to Josh and do we know what the language is yet?
Yeah, can we just type it out right now? Is that keyboard work?
John,
Or is John?
John?
Do you have a,
John, you have access to your keyboard? Yes.
I have access to my keyboard, yes.
Can you wordsmith that?
In the course of human events, it sometimes becomes necessary. What? How do we do it?
So Kevin, this is the language.
No person shall park any vehicle on the northwest side of Nora, in the intersection of Tia Street to the Edmund Bridge, On the southing from the Edmund.
Share your screen.
But I'm
Oh,
kind of
am I
proposing
sharing it now?
roadside parking between.
Oh,
Duxbury Road
sorry,
and
I'm using a different tool, sorry.
Chief's language.
Wait. Uh, sorry,
How would you word this, chief?
Wait. Just make me reserve for the time.
So you're trying to prevent people from parking on the side of the road between Duxbury Road and where?
The
Behind
bridge,
the river.
yeah, the bridge across the Huntington River.
Without including the existing parking space that the town has created.
So, no person shall park a motor vehicle on, no person shall park a motor vehicle along the roadside.
are you able to see this?
No, if something happens, it's kind of like.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know.
It's askew.
Yeah, it's got a motion.
Magic carpet. It does have that.
It'll come back. Have to reload it.
So you think roadside is cleared up language
There
then
you
for?
There you go.
I think this is snow removal ordinance. This is snow removal ordinance.
Yeah.
Like that's like,
That's how they talk.
well, every one, 12 AM to midnight, snow
Yeah,
removal,
that's
12
snow,
AM.
that's snow, yeah.
Yeah, but all the 12 AM to 6 midnight snow, everywhere up here where they use those same hours, they finish the paragraph with snow removal. So I think that down here, this is snow removal
Mhm.
language. They just didn't add the last sentence. 'Cause otherwise it's just bizarre, 12 to 7.
Well, that's just,
Okay,
this-
so
yeah,
that would make more sense, although it certainly is not clear.
it is
No.
not clear, yeah. You done with this one? No, we're getting rid of the 63 feet part.
I mean, yeah, and it could actually be just one sentence at this point, right? Or maybe now it can't, because
I would just say along Cochrane Road. Instead of the northwest side of Town Highway 03, I mean, you might have to, for legality purposes, I believe the Town Highway 3 in there, but.
Yeah, I would leave the town highway 3 with, and then that's how the other ordinances are written, and then in parentheses Cochrane Road, that's the same, but why don't we just put.
Except, I think there was some suggested language that,
except in designated parking.
Yeah, except where parking has specifically been designated. Or something to that, except where. Parking has been specific, explicitly, there you go, explicitly designated.
So are we getting rid of the northwest? side?
Nice.
The curbside? Roadside? Are we getting rid of the first northwest line, the roadside? No. person-
I think roadside cuts a lot of the.
Yeah, so
redundancy
John,
out of
what
south
do you
side.
think about no person shall park any vehicle on the roadside? On Cochrane Road,
The roadside along Cochrane Road,
along Cochrane Road,
or along Town Highway 03 Cochrane.
intersection of that.
without, were you suggesting getting rid of the word northwest?
Yeah, we're getting rid of we're saying both sides of Cochrane Road, rather than indicating north or south. Because it's equal on both sides.
Right, if you specify one thing, then you're excluding the opposite. So if you say on the northwest side, then you're also saying that parking is allowed on the southeast side.
I'm gonna try a different word. No person park any vehicle on the. What is it? On the roadside?
Roadside.
And I would say along the roadside, not on the
Okay,
roadside.
along.
Can I see that ordinance again?
Intersection with Town Highway 5, Duxbury Road.
Um, do we want to say on both sides? Do we, the road on the roadside of both sides?
Along either roadside?
Like that, along either roadside. Side, Cochrane Road. Yeah, and then get rid of,
Well,
get rid of a lot of it, the rest of
Okay.
it.
Along either
Right,
roadside of THC Cochrane Road from the intersection with Town Highway Duxbury Road to the, do we want to say guardrail of Edmund Bridge or?
Guardrail is what came from Pete.
I think I would ditch everything after bridge.
Yeah, I ditch everything after bridge.
Well, you want to keep the except where parking has been.
Well,
Grab that except part.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's like how there's something-
Yeah, I was kind of hoping roadside took care of that piece, but.
no,
repeating
but
is-
that's okay. Check it out. Now, would anyone argue that the Edmund parking area is explicitly designated?
Can we just say except the Edmund parking, off-street parking, or?
I'm hoping roadside takes. care of
So
that.
here's the, I know what you mean, but some college kid that's here from California has to also know what you mean.
Yeah.
So if you want to allow parking in that parking area, then that parking area needs a name or something that is like, I know what the Edmonds Bridge is.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows what the Edmonds Bridge is. So, and then, and it's not so much that they need, because they're not gonna read this until after they've gotten the ticket, and that's where they're gonna formulate their argument.
This is good reason. Okay.
So, except where parking has been specifically designated. And if somebody goes and paints white lines in that parking lot as these are parking spots, then parking has been designated there.
Okay.
Um,
Hey, John, after Edmund Bridge, put in parentheses, bridge over the Huntington River, just so somebody says, where is it? It's not marked. See where it says, wait, I think you're on the second, you're on the second paragraph.
So maybe we should approach Pete with putting some kind of a parking sign there that says
Well, I think we talked once about putting,
parking for 4 cars. or
And that's,
something there.
and that is what parking for 4 vehicles. And the 5th car that shows up, I'm sorry, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever the number is,
Yeah.
But the problem is that's really not a parking area, it's a pull-off. That's not set up, I mean, it's. People park perpendicular to the road there, facing that house. The problem is the side of that parking, that area is not a straight line, it's not flat. It's an arc.
Yeah.
And so the one in the middle is completely on the pavement, and the next 2 over there have one wheel off. And then the next cars out from that have both front wheels off, and it, you know.
The problem with 4 is the first guy parks horribly. And
Right, that's why I said you put some lines on it and.
okay, does anyone can read that second paragraph again?
How does that, what are we thinking here?
pretty solid, John, I think.
You don't need
Well,
to know
I actually
person shall park.
disagree, because which bridge over the Huntington River,
Okay. What do you want to get rid of that?
you need to give a direction, shall not park.
So we're just trying to note with the Edmund bridges.
And I think,
I understand that, but if you stand at the end of Duxbury Road, you've got a bridge over the Huntington River to the right and a bridge over the Huntington River to the left. Or no, I'm sorry, that's the Winooski River,
That's the Winooski, yeah.
so never mind.
we're trying to mimic,
It's okay, it's okay, no, this is how to do it, don't worry.
Wait, Chief Herrick,
we're trying to mimic the language that's there, and perhaps the person shall park was something I added to.
You don't need to know person, because that's introduction.
I added that, so perhaps that can be taken out.
yeah,
It's the
So
last one.
how should it start?
It's,
any vehicle,
Yeah.
or no, not even after, it starts at along either roadside.
What?
There's a preamble that says, like, this applies to all ordinance, no person shall park any vehicle, and then it lists all the different ordinances. Yeah,
you
like
see
that,
You got it, Ron, right there.
there you go.
You can get rid of no person, yeah.
Keeps it commuted, like.
Jeez. There's two like redundant Dugway Road.
Oh, you saw it.
There's two of them.
Yeah.
And they both like, they're saying the same thing, like. Maybe we should clean this up too.
And it actually doesn't need to say roadside, it can just say side, along either side of.
So.
Yeah, I think it was,
That's even better.
Yeah. On either side of Cochrane Road, from the intersection from Duxbury Road to Edmund Bridge. Got it.
And except where parking has been explicitly designated, gives us some wiggle room in the future.
Right,
Uh.
at that, with that, you can do whatever you want.
It means unless otherwise marked, yeah. And then I kind of think maybe a sign then is due at the Edmund parking saying, you know, must park in lines or 3 cars max or something to indicate the what we want them to do there. Because sometimes you'll find somebody parked lengthwise in there that blocks the whole thing.
Usually a longer vehicle. All right. Did you complete something?
I can sign up with that.
So
I can sign
someone,
off on this one.
someone's gonna send this to Josh along with, do we need a map?
Oh, yeah, John, you should give your map.
Yeah, I
down.
can send it
John.
to Josh.
Sorry?
Um.
Yeah,
just give-
let me show you that.
It's just,
Yeah. Can you show them out?
Maybe reply all on that one, so we all get the final wording.
Well, I was gonna put it in the notes, but yeah, I'll do that.
should we tell them to delete one of the Dugway Road ones just to avoid confusion? Like, they're all saying
It's all.
similar but
it's probably
different,
good. When I
Yeah.
was reading it, I kept- I read it so many times.
yeah,
Hence messed up our own.
yeah.
It's a problem when you read something, you have to think, what was the person thinking when they wrote this?
And I
And then
think
you
that-
understand it, but that's still.
you didn't know if it was legal or not.
So I'm going to, should I remove this green?
Yes, well,
We're not, the ordinance doesn't have any reference to the green.
Well, the only thing is it does explicitly say this, right?
You go pink all the way to the river, though, I
you
think.
gotta go pink all the way to the bridge.
So the bridge is there.
Yeah, even though there's that parking, still.
I don't know if anybody wants to cheer me on while I do this. This is the worst editor in the world.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure no.
I mean, if you go pink all the way to the bridge,
Yeah, just go pink
That's
all
what
the
I
way to the
but
bridge.
you know, that's gonna just create a lot of questions.
What, you don't wanna go right to the bridge?
What they're gonna say, you're getting rid of that parking? You
I
like,
thought that was it, yeah.
That's a-
You like to think that's the accept part.
It would, in my opinion, it'd be clearer for the general public if you somehow didn't put the parking space in pink.
Actually, to be clear and make Pete happy, we'd want to go pink all the way to the bridge and then put a little spot of green in. Right where that tree is, which is that pull off you're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Which he almost has there by the look of it. By look, he has that little green bulb right there.
So really.
So let me show you what that looks like with,
Okay, Edmonds does have that.
no, does it?
Well, that was on that document anyways, but that could be no one. Hey, I like that. Except there's a white in the middle of the road. I don't know if that matters. That looks great.
I think so. You could
So-
possibly put a word balloon in there pointing to that Edmonds parking area and saying Edmonds parking area. Or parking allowed or something like that.
This is great. We're all watching John at it.
I know. In other words, it was somebody, everybody watch you on your PowerPoint, you're like, no, it's that button, it's this button, it's that button. I'm going home.
It's nice to get this done though, John. Thank you.
Mhm.
They obviously were very sold on the map at the presentation. That's a good thing.
This says so much. It's such a visual thing.
They should let it steers all the questions. You know what the question is gonna be about.
But I guess the only question, if the attorney doesn't care that there's no feet or mile markers, I think that what is written there is so much clearer. I
Yeah,
like it so much better.
Yeah.
I mean, you could always just talk like that. Unless there was ambiguity, it wasn't a clear mark. It
yeah,
wasn't an intersection.
No, I think it's.
There are other lines in this reference intersections, and as I thought about it, well, we were starting with an intersection in Route 2,
Yes.
so.
just one that's really far away.
As John, I was worried about the guardrail reference only because. There's a couple of guardrails on Dugway Road over the last 20 years have disappeared.
Yeah, those come and go.
So you wonder about, geez, how that works. I like this much more than I like the to the guardrail reference.
Do we need for John to finish it, or are we ready to move on?
Now, can you just look at the other end, make sure you're 25 feet off of Dugway? Or off of
That's it.
Duxbury?
Somewhere in the brain.
Yeah.
I live on it, like, still miss them.
It looks like you're
Say
a
it
little
again?
close than 25 feet.
Yeah, can we?
Where,
can we
here-
look-
where?
Yeah, exactly where you were. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
And you want to know whether this is 21 feet?
20,
25.
And this isn't the legal document, this is just for the select board and the public who are coming to these hearings to understand what we mean by the wording, yes?
Yeah.
John, I have these at 15 feet.
yeah, keep,
But you're not measuring from Duxbury Road, are you?
I copied that out of what I thought was the traffic ordinance.
Yeah, it looked like you.
25 feet.
There you go.
At state, and then there's 15 feet. And chief, Eric,
Mhm.
intersection of a road. Is it, you can't park within 15 feet? Or 25 feet,
Are
you know?
you asking what the town ordinance says? Or what state law?
I
If
thought,
there's a town ordinance, that would. We learned to proceed.
The town ordinance, I believe, is 20. I think the only reference I have for that is a conversation I was having with Pete. Specifically about the intersection of West White and Cochrane Road on the bridge side.
And he said what? Chief Herrick?
You can't park within 20 feet of the intersection.
and we're talking about the edge of the intersection,
Okay, so
correct? Not the center line.
there's a definition of intersection, which I did not cut and paste, but what I cut out today said 25 feet.
From,
That was a surprise to me. 'Cause
But
I thought it was 15
I could
feet.
bring it up now if we wanted to.
That's right. I mean, I hope that people are not using, I mean, this is not designed to be.
This is just for educational purposes for the select board, general public.
It really doesn't affect our ordinance at all. It's just.
And also, I believe that you know what I didn't change is also the select board suggested that we make that explicit. Remember?
within 20 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection for a Vermont state statute. Title 23.
There's three different numbers.
110. Here, John, it's in red there. I think that's what you, is that where you found it?
Yeah, this intersection reference is 15 feet.
Yes. So when you go.
I know
It's
The more the better, 25 feet, I'd say if they're,
25 feet, Johnstown. We're going 25 feet.
The 15 is the town.
it seems like it, yeah.
Well, I think what you found, John, was written. And we ought to stay legit to that.
But your pink lines don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And we may go over on our 8 o'clock here.
We really want to get this.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
There's also West White. This doesn't really apply to us, but either side of West White Hill, from the intersection with Cochrane Road south to the intersection with Jonesville Estates.
So that's a good reference to Jones, the intersection of Jonesville State.
Yeah,
Yeah, so when
so
I,
how far is that? Where's Jonesville Estates?
so we go, West White, it's the first, road on the.
Okay,
They get a lot of traffic. Tell them what they're both,
Yeah,
like Mike and then he's posted their property now. because they changed up the name.
Who's done? Who's posted what?
But we're talking about off topic a little bit about Jonesville Estates, and they get a fair amount of people
walking through,
accessing the Huntington River through their yards. And
well, there's that path, that road path.
Yeah.
The neighborhood.
with the neighborhood, yeah. But what happens is that people get in the river, they just walk up the river. And you can't do anything about that, that's there.
Oh, yeah, down the river.
so then there's another. Under general provisions, repeal of prior ordinance, and says upon the effective date of this ordinance, any other traffic ordinance. Applicable to the subject matter contained in this ordinance. And previously in effect of the town of Richmond is hereby repealed. We repealing anything on Dugway Road? There,
Not officially, right?
Oh, so this was this right here. On any town highway within 25 feet of the curb line of another town highway or state highway, there shall be no parking within any intersection.
what's number 2?
6A,
And that's the ordinance?
I think so, Richmond traffic ordinance.
Yes, okay. Cause I,
Oh, so it's not
Yeah,
a
like-
parking ordinance, it's a traffic ordinance, that's where you found it, it's great. 25 feet we're doing, John Cone.
What's that?
Could be
John,
multiple.
JC, we just, it's
That's
25
6A.
feet traffic ordinance
6A.
in an intersection in Richmond, so.
Okay.
all of 25, it's not,
Parking regulation.
it wasn't under the parking ordinance one.
What's the date on that? Oh,
The
probably
latest.
hasn't changed. I thought this was.
The latest revision date on that.
Traffic, March 21st, 2022.
Oh, yeah, so this is an old, it's an old version.
that March 22, 2022.
Yeah, so this is old.
I'm assuming you got it offline. Just like,
Talk
give you
Yeah,
that.
to see if the Dugway Road stuff has changed.
Once you print something, it's already dated.
Park your comment to the wagon. So the newest version is 2022. And
Right.
I guess after we have our input, it'll be
I
a
think it-
2023 version.
I didn't even look at those, I realized it was not. All right, are we good with this?
Did we agree on
Ordinance.
John's wording? Are we past that now? And the map is the second piece we wanted to look at? And then we're good for our
John, do you
Select
want
board
to, can you just show the map again in the wording and then we'll move on? Is that,
Okay, which do you want to see first?
the map? Probably the wrong.
It's okay. Let's see here. Do I still have it?
hard to read.
Yeah, they deleted that second Dugway Road reference, so they're cleaning it up. Yeah.
You guys.
No, hang on one second. Oh, shoot. Excuse me, 1 second. Okay. Here's the map. Oh, we wanted, sorry,
And I think
let me do one thing here.
We're gonna get rid of that green line. It's
Uh.
not like everyone can Oh, maybe you should keep the green line.
Hang on one second. Let's see.
I'd take it out, but it raises questions of why there isn't a green line on the other side and.
Yeah, well, because we live there and you can't park there.
Yeah.
John did email us the wording. John did email us out the wording.
But which we have since modified.
Uh, Since this,
Oh, which wording?
along either side of, this looks like the newest wording to me.
Oh, I'm mixing my Johns up here. Okay.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes, okay.
Yes, don't make that.
So Edmonds parking appears if you get in there close enough.
Okay.
Okay, so that's that.
But we're gonna remove the green, the green there.
That was.
Um, Can I,
That's great, John.
so I wasn't planning on sharing this with the world because it has all the, and unless you want me to clean it up, I could.
That's all the what, finish that.
I mean, do you want me to get rid of there is a thing in here that says legal parking. That kind of, actually, that doesn't have parking area. You know, I'm gonna get rid of that. Because I don't think that it really is germane. This is. And parking area, hang on one second here. And that one is light because it's, you know, we're not certain of it.
What's the end no parking that's closer to your house?
That should be over here now.
Maybe we should just get rid of the stop and ends, John, because I think unless you're using them as markers, otherwise.
Well,
Oh, a new begin no parking just showed up on the river. The Huntington, that would be.
well, this is an interesting problem because, I mean, clearly you can't park. Maybe we don't need it on both sides.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
think
mean,
this
really,
is-
it's just
this is
so we
just-
can be at the select board and they're looking at this language and we're saying this is what it means, like.
Yeah, this
that's
is just
it.
for
Yeah,
visualization.
it's
So I
just-
think you can get rid of the
I think right now,
beginning and end.
with a single begin no parking and a single end no parking, it makes sense.
Can I, okay,
That's my 2 cents.
I agree. And in that parking area that you have there, is that the RLT Bombardier previous parking area or?
Yeah. yeah, should I, should we say current?
Well, it's not current right now. Previous, but just put RLT Bombardier. Field, RLT Bombardier. Yeah. How about that? Is it, are you all in agreement? So when people
Yeah.
say, where was that parking?
Yep, that's.
Because it comes up as a little shaded area, doesn't it, John?
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Lightly.
yeah.
And the Edmonds sign just disappeared somehow.
The Edmonds, the problem is it's hard to position those signs. It's not big enough. I mean, if I zoom in, it shows it,
Okay.
which I wish it had more control of it.
Just take a screenshot of something and provide that to Kevin.
Yeah, it's great right there. I like that.
Wait, trying to get,
And John, I don't know, is it necessary to give the whole Google Maps document, or can you just send a screenshot to Kevin?
I think that's the best idea.
Yeah, there's some things you can't get off of there, like.
Yeah.
We don't need all the layers in the.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Hang on, I'm gonna get a mouse. I need to get a mouse to, I'll send that to Kevin.
Okay,
That way I can dial it to just be where we want it. It's just not Mac
I can-
friendly. Okay, I'll send that picture.
all right, in the language, where we look at the language,
Then let's look at the language one more time.
You emailed that to us correctly.
I did. And I will,
From the intersection, get rid of the word with.
sorry,
No parking along either side of Cochrane Road from the intersection. I think maybe change with to of. Or of. Town
the
Highway.
intersection with
What is it even-
of Cochrane Road, the either side of the intersection of TH03 with TH5.
Wait, what's the with?
Was I trying to copy other language when I wrote that?
That is standard Vermont law language.
Intersection with?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's Cochrane Road at the intersection with,
Gotcha,
Okay.
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 Okay,
That's helpful.
if you put the word of in there, then you're talking about the intersection itself.
Wow.
I like everything I've seen.
Yep,
And read.
looks good.
Okay, by the way, I didn't clean out the message completely. So it has some of the original language up there. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna resend that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move on to the next item.
Oh, are we good? Are we? And then we might look at the agenda and see if there's anything we're gonna skip here because postpone till next.
Okay,
Meeting?
hang on, let me get that into the minutes, just one second. Yeah, go ahead, John.
So the next thing was enforcement, and then we have communication, anything else? Is there anything we could skip, or do we want to
Well,
include enforcement
I
here?
think if we can pose on Chief Herrick to join us again, that enforcement would be a good topic and. I mean, as far as who enforces the rules and
Oh, because it's 7:48. Do we do we have time for all of this? Do we want to keep going, or?
again, I just thought since we had the chief today, the enforcement would be a decent topic, but we can come back to it and do something else if you'd like.
I can come back another night.
Well,
I
I
wasn't
think,
offering an opinion, I was asking.
I would say, let's talk about it. I think if we have
Okay.
time, I would say,
backtrack 1 second, so I can get this right. It's George Edmonds with an S at the end. From 1828 to 1919. S is at the end. If I can remember that. So it is Edmonds Bridge.
And for clarity, I met with the chief earlier this week and we spent 45 minutes or so discussing many things, including enforcement. So it'll be good to see what I missed.
All right, does someone want to lead that conversation? I'm not familiar with the details.
I'm going to kind of give you a quick,
Oh, could you want to lead the conversation?
I can give you a summary of what we talked about and we can
Yeah.
go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or do you want to
Yeah.
start fresh? Basically, we talked about it. We talked about enforcement. We talked about the possibility of having a second constable to help out. The chief had mentioned they've been trying to hire the sheriff's department for some time now to come and do Saturdays between 10 and 4.
Yeah, that was originally what we had proposed was a contract with the sheriff's department to have a deputy come from 10 to 4, spend some time on Cochrane Road, during the summer. Spend some time on Cochrane Road, spend some time on Dugway Road, and enforce, parking, speeding, whatever. And the sheriff's department has the same issue that everybody else has right now of they just don't have anybody to send. So they were not interested in doing that. in the spring, we can certainly try again, see if the new sheriff and administration wants to try and do something different. You know, if they've got somebody available, but last summer they did not. The idea of a second constable, we talked about all the, you know, some different issues with that, specific to Andy and the way things are run right now, that he, as the constable, is kind of volunteer. He doesn't get paid when he goes up and writes tickets. And so if you start paying him to write tickets, then he has to be paid anytime he goes to write tickets, because you can't allow somebody as an employer, you can't allow somebody to volunteer to do something that they get paid to do. That's a federal law. So he would have to be paid anytime he was up there doing it. And I mean, right now, he spends a lot of time up there. You know, he goes up usually at least one day, if not both days, on the weekends during the summer. But that's Andy, and that's now. You know, if something happens and he decides that he doesn't want to spend that time, or if he decides not to be the constable and somebody else gets elected, who knows what that person's going to want to do.
Chief, is there been any discussion or thought of something in between those two? Is it like traffic wardens or meter people, you know, that could be hired, or who wouldn't perhaps do a towing, wouldn't have the ability to do a towing, but could write a ticket? I mean, is there something in some
Something could be added into the ordinance, creating a parking ticket enforcement person, however you wanted to phrase that. The problem is you're dealing with people who are up there and have been drinking, and 99% of the people get their ticket, look at the ticket and go, you got me, and shake our hands and move on. Like, that's, you know, but you do have people who can become pretty confrontational and cause problems. And I would not want to be that person up there with nobody else with me in that kind of a situation. So you would have to take that into consideration, that, you know, I mean, Burlington Police Department has parking enforcement personnel, but they also have 10 cops and cruisers that are right around the corner. Whereas with us, you've got one person who could be 20 minutes away. So
for a safety point of view, that would not
yeah, it would,
be advisable.
yeah,
Thank you.
I would not want to be that person.
And if so Andy is a trained constable.
Yes, Andy is a police officer. He doesn't have that title because he's not employed by a police department, but he is certified as a police officer by the state. And so he could be hired on as a part-time officer and go up and do that you know, as a part-time officer. But again, now you have a, you know, police officer that's got to be paid by the town, and that would be a conversation that Josh would have to be part of, and
He'd have to resign as a constable, or at least not.
or there would have to be some pretty bright lines drawn between. So one of the things they could do, and I think the town has been hesitant to do this because it's Andy, and Andy does what he does. Towns do have the ability to vote. The select board can vote to withdraw enforcement authority from their constables. And so the constable then becomes essentially a peacekeeper at the polling place. That's the only thing left for them. Andy's not interested in having that done. I don't think the town has ever been interested in doing that. That would be one way to handle it. I don't think it's the best way.
I apologize. I'm missing. How would that help?
He would then no longer have enforcement authority as law enforcement authority as a constable. And so he wouldn't be able to go out and write parking tickets. He wouldn't be able to do those things. And that would make it so that there was never a conflict as to when he goes and takes some kind of enforcement action, is he being the constable or is he being a police officer?
So
I
if
think
he
it
were, if the constable, let me just make sure I understand this because I want to write it down. So if he was stripped of his, the parking part of his constable stuff, he might be hireable as a police officer?
He's a police officer.
He's.
No, I
he's
mean, what I
hireable.
mean is that if that was taken out of the constable role, then would he then be possibly be able to be paid to do the additional enforcement?
The short answer to your question is, in one word, is yes. I think it would be a better decision on the part of the town to come up with and I don't know who makes the decision, but come up with a dollar amount of how many dollars an hour the constable is going to be paid, and then the constable can go out and do constable things and get paid to do that. And if that's parking enforcement, if that's directing traffic the 4th of July, if that's, doing crowd control or parking or traffic for various bike and foot races around town, whatever it is that he's going to do, he's getting paid by the town to do it as the constable. And then it would just be a conversation between Andy and Josh, or whoever the constable is and whoever the town manager is, as to how many hours a week, month, or year the town is going to allow the constable to bill for their hours.
I think
In the grand scheme of like all the options, I think that is the one that will solve the most problems and create the least problems for everybody involved.
And I could see hiring a second constable who would
Right, the
also be
town,
paid, could work with Andy initially.
Yeah.
And then Andy's a great guy. I mean, he's phenomenal, but he's not a 10-year plan probably.
right,
So by having somebody work with him now, and not to mention having a little bit of strength in numbers there,
Yeah.
maybe the two of them going out on Saturdays together or whatever and doing this might alleviate a couple concerns.
yes,
How does that?
you can take the Tesla.
How does
Um,
the constable, how does the constable get, is he elected?
The constables, as I believe Andy is elected.
Yeah.
So it's up to how your town handles it. Some towns appoint their constables, some towns elect them. Some towns have one constable, some towns have two. A first and a second. It's different. A while ago, and I don't know if it's still like a thing, but a while ago it kind of became popular to create to make it so that your constables were appointed, and then they would appoint the police chief or one of the police officers as the constable. And so you didn't have somebody with no law enforcement experience, no training, no anything, being given a gun and a blue light and said, have fun. But they also passed a law that now, in order for a constable to enforce law, they have to be certified, so.
One thing I was wondering, Chief Herrick, is that Andy does get paid for his animal control part of that role. Why is that?
Because that is not, when he is doing animal control, he's not the constable.
So he has two different roles. Okay.
Appointed by the select board or hired or whatever, as the animal control officer.
Okay.
And anybody can be the animal control officer.
Are you all comfortable with me putting this in the public record, this discussion without talking to Andy first? I mean, it is in the public record, but.
Yes, I say yes, because I've had these conversations with Andy.
Okay.
This won't come as a surprise
All
to
right.
him. He and I have talked about different options and so forth.
Okay, great.
Really, it comes down to a conversation between Andy and somebody from the town as to what they want to do, but.
It sounds like the only way for more enforcement of parking would be another officer or another constable, and then nothing else, really.
Well,
I mean, it's not like the sheriff or.
yeah,
I mean,
you
Are
can
we
try
missing
again with the sheriff.
I'm not missing anything. I'm just trying.
No, are we missing anything?
Yeah, we missed.
Yeah, no, I mean, you try again with the sheriff. You certainly can say, hey, we're gonna create this parking enforcement person. list them in the ordinance as somebody who's allowed to enforce the parking laws, hand them a book of tickets and tell them to go knock themselves out. And whatever kind of training you want to give them and whatever you want to allow them to do, by you, I mean the town, whatever the town wants to allow them to do and so forth. I think the most important part would be if somebody gives you a hard time, leave. And like you're not there to get into an argument or to debate the legality of what you're doing or whatever. It's just not worth it.
My brother was a police officer in New York State, and it seemed like he worked all weekends on different, they got hired. But he and many of his other police officers would just work extra on weekends for a number of things, whether it be a festival or does that happen here? Is there
Yes, that happens here. We certainly could have the one of us that's off duty come in and do some parking enforcement. But currently you have two officers and do they cross line of townships and it seemed like. So you would have to hire them. You would have to hire them, right? Right. You can't call Williston and say, hey, does one of your officers want to come work for Williston in Richmond doing parking enforcement? We would have to hire Officer Smith as a police officer in Richmond. And I can tell you that, never say never, nobody's coming to work here part-time. So in Chittenden County, you don't share? No. I wouldn't go work there part-time. I wouldn't go work part-time for Williston. If I work part-time for Williston, I'm going to go do the same thing I do here for less money. Or I can go to Williston and work at like Governor's Highway Safety Program, where we go out and look for DUIs. Yeah. I get paid overtime, time and a half if I do that here. I get paid straight time if I do it there. It's just financially, it doesn't make sense to go work someplace else. Thank you for explaining that. I'm trying to find who else can we get to help out on those hot summer weekends.
And you made a good point, because everybody is stretched so thin that you're in Addison County and there's a road construction project.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it's a Franklin County sheriff there.
Yeah.
Because they're
just shuffling deputies around, hey, I've got this person available this weekend. So we'll send them 2 counties away to sit behind a paving crew. That I would go do. I used to do that and I hated it. And I can't wait to go, be a municipal cop somewhere and not be a deputy sheriff doing anything. I'll go sit behind a paving crew for overtime. Absolutely. Trainer. But
we're not missing any other options.
Not really, no. You can create a position, you can add constables, you can try and hire it. Now, what you can do, or what, hiring part-time officers, maybe you have a school teacher that would love to be a cop on during the summer. Mm-hmm. And they go through the 2-week academy, they do their time riding and training with somebody, get signed off as certified, and then they're a police officer. Something like that. And it doesn't have to be a teacher, it can whoever. But somebody who this one is on. Yeah. That's why I said teacher, because
a constable doesn't go to the academy.
Constable does not have to go to the academy to be the constable. Constable has to go to the academy to enforce laws.
Write a ticket.
Right. You can be a constable and just be the constable.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, Andy even went on for additional thing.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does training every year. He's just like all the rest of us.
Yeah, he said he's right up there training wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we were to add a second constable, we would have to go through a process of hiring something. They would have to go to the
hiring,
academy.
Appointing, or having voted in.
Yeah, they would still have to get a slot at the academy before they write a ticket.
To be law enforcement.
So these kids that are
Kind of,
tickets
there's
are
kind of a
Burlington.
gray area with parking enforcement. How you could get a constable and send them up to do parking enforcement, but they're just somebody doing they're the constable, they have the title constable, but they're not a law enforcement officer. Like, can't carry a gun, can't arrest anybody, can't whatever, but they can go write parking tickets.
That was my thought. My thought was all these people in Burlington that are working for Parks and Recreation and whatever, and doing the ticketing. They obviously haven't all been to the academy.
They're not police officers, they're civil employees that have been given authority to write those tickets. They can't write a speeding ticket,
Right.
but they can write a parking ticket.
They probably can tow.
I might actually keep them on the road.
Maybe
So under state law, any enforcement officer, so I believe it's gotta be a police officer to have the car towed. Somebody who's certified by the training council. Or the council, they're no longer the training.
Seems like we have options anyways, or the town has options. I mean, the option, the real option, of course, is to fully fund and fill the police department and go from there, but.
Right. I would still, even if we had all of our, every slot filled, I'd still like to find something that makes it so that the officer who's on duty that day is not up on Dugway Road.
Yeah.
I mean, this past summer, I spent 6 hours. I signed on, began my shift, and I spent the first 6 hours of my shift just on Dugway Road. And I was the only person working.
And so, I mean, part of what drove us on Dugway Road was trying to simplify the understanding of the parking up there, so it wouldn't come down to you every time.
Right.
We're hoping that it simplifies your life, and I'm probably living in Pollyanna land, but
I wouldn't phrase it that way. You're not gonna make it go away. There's always gonna be the person who shows up and says, there's gonna be the person who shows up and says, oh, the fine's $25. That's what I pay for parking in Burlington. So I'm just gonna leave my car right here. And when I come back, I'll pay the $25 parking fee. And they just change fine to parking fee and work it into their budget for the day. You're gonna have people who show up and go, well, that guy parked there, so I'm just gonna park right behind him. And if it's okay for him, then it's okay for me. Even if that car's parked legally and then their car's out in the road, you're always gonna have that. No amount of signs, no amount of whatever is gonna change that. Because you've got 200 cars. I don't know if it's really 200, but you've got a lot of cars showing up on Dugway Road to go swimming and whatever during the summer. And you do not have 200 parking spots. So there's, you
60.
yeah, right. It's just the numbers don't add up. So there's going to be problems. Trying to minimize that and figure out the best way to deal with it. And part of that is word of mouth from person to person that, hey, they write parking tickets, they tow cars.
$100 tickets and.
Right, yeah, and that's, I know you guys have discussed recommending raising the fines, and I think that's a great idea. I think $25, like I just said, $25 is a parking fee, not a parking fine. Yeah.
Appreciate your support on that.
So do we want to discuss that, next steps on that in any way?
On the fines?
Yeah. Is that a different, as we've run out of time here?
We're kind of running out of time. I'll just remind us that potentially someone who goes skating at Gillett Pond will be getting $100 fine.
Next year.
Yep.
I think our job
We're
is
gonna
to,
post them. I think posting the amount is also really informative.
and I feel for the Gillette's Pond scenario is, it pulls at the heartstrings a little bit, because I do think it's mainly Richmond people up there, or people that live within 10 or 15 miles. And they are families, and they're responsible and all that kind of stuff. We just need to get from the emotional argument to the legal argument that we can make to the select board.
Right. And be cognizant of the fact that there are droves of people who are using a magnifying glass to watch law enforcement to make sure we're being fair and that we're treating everyone the same. And so for us to go to one road and write, to be hard nosed and every car, even just a little over the line, you get a ticket. And then go to the other road and go, well, yeah, but they're just right. They're just ice skating. I mean, the other people are just swimming. And,
It's definitely a heart versus your head
right.
argument.
Right. So I'm
I mean, I think tonight, my goal is just to get something to select board on the ordinance.
Yeah.
For Cochrane Road next week. I think, you think we've done that? Yeah, I think we can have a discussion, but I'm probably not ready to have a discussion about what the fine should be or what the rationale is, at least for next week.
I think we planted a seed with the select board. I've heard Jay and Dave talking in the background about it. They know it's out there.
Yeah.
Even though I think if we don't make a formal proposal, again, we planted the seed.
Yeah,
I in my mind, I think if it said no parking on travel portion road, the little sign underneath said $100 fine. That'd be twice the sign.
So how does the parking amount, how did it ever come up? Like, how did it originally get put about? Who said,
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
When they wrote the ordinance, that's,
that's what it was back in, there's a history that.
I want to say Jay said it was $15 and they raised it 25 in the 80s.
Okay, so.
I want to say that's what I heard him saying.
I really feel like it's a select board thing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so you brought it up, we brought it up.
That's what I said. We
just
planted the
let
seed.
it- let
Yeah.
them Take it, or do we follow that?
And I think Gillette's Pond, unfortunately, I don't see there's anything we can do with that this year. Probably because the daffodil will be up in another couple of weeks, but we should have our ducks in a row by the time it's, by first of the year next year. Into trying to find a solution there, whether it's the Girl Scout camp or it's something. So people can do that up there.
yeah.
I personally am not ready to recommend a value to the select board of what the parking fine should be.
I recommend them increase it, and I don't know.
I think it weakens our parking stances. If we don't have we're not just trying to assess a fine, we're trying to modify behavior according with that fine. And I think if we're going to undermine it by saying, but what about the skaters on Gillette's Pond? Then we're kind of undermining everything we've done in the last 6 months. I mean, I get it. We just need to solve that problem and not weigh down everything else by it.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else critical on the agenda?
So there was communications. I don't know what that is. Anything else?
I
And
mean,
then
there's
we
gonna
move on.
be a lot, like we can talk like once we get the ordinance change, I think there's gonna be quite a bit of work going. Talking with Pete about signs and placement and,
I think we can actually start talking sooner with Kimball signage.
Yeah.
So we have, thought.
yeah. But it's also like the warning signs saying new parking ordinance in effect. I think there's gonna be a lot of thought and get too distracted on,
Let's take communication in another month, maybe. I like that, though. And your idea of press release, like the town and say, hey, we've got new stuff happening there.
Yeah.
So we can skip over those and move to approve past minutes. I printed them out, or do we want to wait for the next? I don't know what the rules are on that.
No, everyone received the minutes and the.
I would vote. Someone want to move?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
John, you approved the minutes.
I approve, yeah.
And what date was that?
That was not 2 weeks ago, but it was a Tuesday.
10
Remember
days ago
that?
or something.
It was
I want to
January.
thank John Rankin for putting together a solid meeting with.
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you, John.
January 23rd, 2023. the past meeting,
That's right.
right?
I'm counting for more than that.
Do we need to just, should we wait on the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
and a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
I
You can hit the.
hit the, I'm gonna hit the, end meeting.
Hi, Lisa.
Aye.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for joining.